Hey guys, so next up is, after the first two, it should be fairly obvious, but Panzer Dragoon Saga is what we're going to talk about today. This was actually the whole reason I got a Sega Saturn, and the fact that I own this game is still just, it blows my mind, honestly. But, so there was a big genre shift with this one. So obviously the first two are rail shooters. I discussed that in the video, in the reviews of them. This one's actually an RPG. A very different type of game. But, you know, that's how it is. This one you control a mercenary named Edge. And Edge actually has a personality. He talks in this one. He actually has a voice. He interacts a lot. You don't name him, he's named Edge, but you do have to give your name at the beginning of the game. And that's a plot point I'm going to let you I'm not going to go over the whole plot in this game, but Edge works for the Empire, and where he's staying is attacked by the Resistance, which is led by some jerk named Kramen, who might have his own agenda. And Edge gets shot and falls in this ravine. He ends up surviving that, finds this girl in the wall named Azel, and meets up with the dragon. And there, Edge wants revenge against Kramen and Kramen's men. The story is a lot more twists and turns than that, and it's much more complex than I'm letting it on to be. But I'm not going to give away the whole story. I need you guys to play this for yourselves somehow. But it's much more story-driven than the previous two. Much more story-driven. Much longer as well. But again, this is an RPG, not a rail shooter. They completely changed it up. But there you go. So, I actually thought the story was quite intriguing. It actually kept me going. The ending blew my mind. I wasn't expecting that. And it's got this sense of hopefulness and sorrow at the same time. A lot of that has to do with Edge. Edge, you're really rooting for the guy. You want him to succeed. You want him to go to get done what he wants to get done. You want to see this guy prevail. So it's good that they did that. Now, gameplay-wise, it's a lot different than the previous games, and a lot different than a lot of other RPGs out there. For example, we're talking about RPG. We'll use Final Fantasy VII as the example. Final Fantasy VII, you have your party, and you got Cloud, you got Tifa, you got Barret, you got Aerith, you got Red 13, you got Cid, Yuffie, Vincent, Kate Sith, you got all of them. I think that's everybody. I think I mentioned everybody. I wasn't meaning to do that. But, so you got your party, and you pick your three, and you go for it. Panzer Dragoon Saga doesn't really have that. You have Edge, and you have the dragon. That's it. That's all you got to worry about in terms of your party, because there isn't really one. You also don't have to worry about getting lost or figuring out where to go, because the game's very linear. It's the most linear RPG I've ever played, and there's not a lot of fetch quests, and there's not a lot of side quests either. It's very straightforward, which is weird for an RPG. But, hey, they were trying something different. It was very ambitious for the time. A lot of RPGs didn't go this extra mile to have fully voiced cutscenes throughout all of its... Well, Final Fantasy did have fully voiced cutscenes until Final Fantasy X, which was 2002. The graphics are insanely good for the Saturn. Probably the best looking game on the console. Amazing. Like, the fact that the Saturn pulled this off is impressive. And it runs at 60 FPS. I don't know how, but they did it. Like, there's an hour and a half worth of FMV footage, which is why this game is 4 discs long. Not because it's super long, because it's not. It's longer than the others, but I finished it in about 16 hours, which is short for an RPG. When you take Final Fantasy VII, for example, which took me about 30. Yeah, no, do the math. The gameplay is it's broken down into 3 sections. You control Edge in town, so you just kind of run around, talk to people, buy stuff. Nothing really spectacular. It's actually kind of awkward because you got to hold a button to run. Then there's flying, which you're just a dragon. You're flying around. You're breaking stuff. It's not bad. It actually controls quite well. The dragon isn't on rails though. You actually have to move the dragon, which is weird for a Panzer Dragoon game. That you actually have to make sure you have to move the dragon yourself. It's weird for a Panzer Dragoon game, but they make it work. You can fly up, down, all around. The dragon can't run this time, but because Edge can, it really doesn't matter. And then there's the combat. The combat is the best part of the game, so it's sort of turn-based, but also not. So the way it works is you and the Edge and the dragon. You still got the gun and the lasers. That's no different. And you still choose whether to use the gun or the laser. That's no different. It's not the same button anymore, though. It's on 2 separate buttons. And you still have berserks, but I'll talk about those in a minute. So you have your health. You have your berserker bar, which is your magic, and then you have 3 bars that fill up. And then you have a radar dish. So the radar dish actually signals points. So if the radar dish is green, spots on the radar dish are green, you're safe. You're not going to take damage. Clear means you're going to take minimum damage. Red means you're at risk of taking high damage. And you got to move around to get to the best spots because the safe zone might be good for you, but you're going to bump out the least amount of damage. The red is usually where the enemy's weak point is, but you're also going to take the most damage. So you got to try to hit them and back out. It's really chaotic. It seems like it would be, but it works. It works. So those 3 bars I was telling you about that fill up, those are your actions. You get 3 actions per turn. So you can fill it up, for example, if you want to use a healing spell, now it's time to use it. If you want to use a healing item, now it's time to use it. Attack. Berserkers usually take 2. Then there's another form of magic. I forgot what it's called offhand, but they take 3 bars, 3 energy bars, but they don't use any BP. So you can use those completely heal yourself, or use a special type of attack. They cost 0 BP, but they take your full bar. So you got to basically manage when you're going to attack, when you're going to heal, when you're going to move. It's not as complicated as you might think it would be, because the game is not difficult at all. I died twice my whole playthrough, and that was just because it was a boss. I didn't know where its weak point was. I didn't know how to dodge its attack correctly. Second time, I destroyed it. Second boss, it was a time limit boss. I didn't know its weak point, and once I knew that, the second time, I destroyed him. So it's not difficult at all. It's actually pretty easy. And you level up really fast. Really fast. He gets a lot of XP. And you get more XP the faster you go. The better you do in the battle, the more XP you get. So that's really cool. Like Panzer Dragoon Zwei, the dragon does evolve as the game goes on, but he doesn't evolve based on how well you do. He evolves based on certain plot points. So there are 5 forms you can get throughout the story, and there are 2 extras after that. I really recommend going out and getting those other 2, because the final form is awesome and it's really powerful. I ended up getting the final form right before I went to the final boss, and it was worth it. What else? The soundtrack's really good, but I still think, soundtrack-wise, I actually think this is the weakest of the 3, because I like Zwei's better, and I like Panzer Dragoon Saga. Panzer Dragoon Saga. There's no Panzer Dragoon soundtrack better. Now, in terms of RPGs, games in general, really, how do I put this elegantly? Wow. I like Panzer Dragoon. I love Panzer Dragoon Zwei. This Panzer Dragoon Saga blew me away. I did not expect it to be that. Wow. There's something magical about Panzer Dragoon Saga. Everything about it just works. It plays really well. The story is really good. You feel for the characters. And this is the game that Panzer Dragoon always should have been, because it gives you... Panzer Dragoon always gave you that world that you wanted to explore, but you couldn't because of the gameplay. Saga gives you more about the world, more about the lore, more about the characters. And this is one of my favorite RPGs, next to Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, I'm still going to say I prefer Final Fantasy VII, honestly. That's not because Panzer Dragoon Saga is bad at all. It's amazing. And there are things about this I like better than Final Fantasy VII. But I like Final Fantasy VII's story better. I like its soundtrack better. I like its cast better. But the core gameplay of Saga is at least on par with 7. And the graphics are way better. So I think they even out for the most part, but I have more of an attachment to Final Fantasy VII than I do Panzer Dragoon Saga. So personally, Final Fantasy VII is like here and Saga's like right here. It's really close. But this is one of those games. I don't care how you do it. You have got to play it. I want to say it's a must-own, but it's really hard to come by, and that's where this next part of the review is going to come up. If you want to play this game right now goes for typically $1,200 at minimum. It is a rare collector's item. The Japanese version is a lot cheaper. You can get that for about $60 or $70. But you can't play it on an American console, even with an Action Replay Plus, because there's an anti-cheat system in there. So you would have to get a Japanese Saturn. And because this is an RPG, this isn't a rail shooter, the story is quite important. And it's going to be really hard to follow with that language barrier. So, forgive me. Sorry about that, but I saw yesterday there is a bootleg out there on eBay for about $30. I might even link it in the video description. If you can get that in a pseudo Saturn converter, which is about $80, if you can go for it. Normally I don't recommend getting bootlegs, but because this is such a hard game to come by, it's a really hard game to come by, but I ultimately say no matter how you can do it, if you have the money, go ahead and get this. Just go for it. If you could understand Japanese, get the Japanese version. But this is one of the greatest games ever made. I haven't felt this way about a game since last time I felt this amazing about a game was after I beat Ocarina of Time for the first time. And Final Fantasy VII, those two are the only ones that even come close to this. It's an incredible, incredible, incredible game. One of my probably top 3 of all time. The best game on the Sega Saturn, the best game in the Panzer Dragoon series. One of the greatest RPGs of all time. One of the most underappreciated games of all time. If you have a way to play this, you'll probably fall in love with it. Most people that played it have. There are a couple parts that are kind of boring. I'm not going to lie. Where Final Fantasy VII really didn't have that, but those are small, minute parts, whereas the rest of the game, it comes together perfectly. And it's Team Andromeda. Great job. Great job. It's a shame that so few people played this. And it's not the game's fault. It was on a small install base, unfortunately. And it was also not a lot of copies were made. I don't know if that has to do with the fracturing Saturn sales, or if it was 4-disc game, so it was a lot harder to make copies of it. But if you can play it, I really suggest you do. Hopefully, with the Panzer Dragoon Zwei remake coming out, they remake Panzer Dragoon Saga, so people can appreciate it, because it's never been re-released, ever. The original Panzer Dragoon is on the Panzer Dragoon Orta disc, so that's been re-released, but Saga really hasn't. And 1 and 2 are easy to come by. Even the American versions are a lot cheaper than Saga. But oh man, if you have the funds, if you have a way to play it, if you have a computer that can run a Saturn emulator, if you have $1,200 to burn, this is what you need to buy. The way I did it, I'll give you a bit of a tip here. I got the discs separately, and then I got a reproduction case. So my case isn't official, but it saved me in the end $400. So if you can do that, go for it. This is a game that more people really need to experience. It's just, I love it, and if you play it, I'm sure you will too. It's, wow. It's my personal favorite game in the Panzer Dragoon series, although I haven't played Orta, but Orta's more like 1 and 2. And they're fun, but I like RPGs. So this is one of the best games of all time, and I can't say any more without blowing my load. So I think that's going to be it for me to you for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope you guys enjoyed Panzer Dragoon Saga as much as I did, because it's definitely one of the greats, and more people really should play it. But that's all I got for you today, guys. I think that's going to be it for my Influx of Saturn videos, because I just wanted to, for some reason, I wanted to review this. This was like the one game I wanted to review, but I figured I'll just do the whole Panzer Dragoon trilogy after I played the first one. And that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching my Panzer Dragoon reviews. And stick around. I'm going back, because I actually already recorded my next video after this. So we're going back to Digimon after this one with it's going to be a fun time. But anyway, that's it from me to you for now. Hope you guys have a good one. Take care.